So friends, today we are going to discuss the history general studies section of mains related exam. And today we'll be discussing about the questions and what could be their model answer. So when we talk about the questions asked by UPSC this year, so we find that they have asked 6 questions from history section in general studies, and we find that 2 or 3 more questions were expected though, but we find that in prelims this time they have asked 16 questions. So UPSC always tries to do the balance, and that's why the questions related to history section they have reduced this year. So when we talk about the questions they have asked this year, we find that they have asked 6 questions. So 3 questions they have asked from art and architecture field and art and culture field, and then the 1 question from modern India, 1 question from post-independence part, and another last question they have asked from, you can say, world history. So when we talk about these 6 questions asked by UPSC, the first question they have asked of 150 words, and this is carrying 10 marks. So the first question is, discuss the salient feature of Harappan architecture. Discuss the salient feature of Harappan architecture. So we find that we have to focus on the salient feature of Harappan architecture. Now we know that Harappan civilization was a mature civilization. It was very well developed civilization that would be backed by you can say economic factors, because trade and commerce was very flourished this time, and that would be also supported by agricultural surplus. So that's why they had a great sense of, you can say, architecture. They had the keen interest, they had the economic backing, and along with that we find that one important unique feature of Harappan life or Harappan architecture, that they focus on the architecture which are beneficial for them. It means that they didn't prefer, or they didn't have that much interest in decoration or decorative life of architecture, but they tried to make that kind of architecture which were very much beneficial for them. So we find that when we talk about the features of Harappan architecture, we can see that there is a urban planning, then the civic amenities, then the building materials, the residential architecture, public and granary structure, and fortification. So these are some of the important features of Harappan architecture. So in intro, you can write that they had a very flourished economy supported by agriculture surplus and trade and commerce, and so they went for you can say making the so many architecture, but the architecture were of basically you can say utility purpose, not for decoration purpose. And so we find that when we analyze their architecture, we find that there are so many features which were there. So like they did the urban planning, so always there would be planning for their architecture, and in the planning like they use the grid system, they focus on the, you can say, unitary or you can say uniformity sense they focused, and along with that we find that they use the important building materials. So like they use the burnt bricks along with some mud bricks also, so that there would be durability. It means that again their focus is the durability, their focus is utility, not the decoration. And along with that we find that they had the great sense of, you can say, residential architecture also, because the residential architecture is very much well designed. They had a great sense of sanitation also. Their burials are like away from the residential part, and they had also the, you can say, great sense of privacy of life. So we find that in their architecture, in their buildings, we find that the windows are not open to the main estate. So these things are some important features. And we find also that they had made public and granary structure. So for storage of food grains, they have made the structure. And in Mohenjo-daro and in Harappa, we find that so many granaries are there, and these granaries are definitely were used for, you can say, emergency purpose, so that the food grains could be stored. Along with that, we find that as we don't have the decipherment of literary source in Harappan period, so we find that we can make a, you can say, guess that probably they were having the sense of uh, insecurity because of the flood occurrence and the, you can say, invasion as well. So we find that these urban planning, civic amenities and the building materials, residential architecture, public and granary structure, fortification, this could be the features of Harappan architecture. So in intro part, you can write that they had a very, you can say, flourished kind of economy. They had also keen interest and they focus on the utilitarian aspect of life, and so driven by this you can say requirement, they went for making their architectures, and these architectures were having this kind of features. And finally, along with this, in the conclusion, you can write that there were some limitations of Harappan architecture, and then the relevance part could be also written in, you can say, that in the conclusion, because there were so many great contribution of Harappan people in the field of architecture, which is very much relevant today. And that's why we can find that even today, like for example, multi-story buildings are there, the granary system is there, grid system is there, which is still used by people of India. So that's why this kind of their features which they used in architecture field, that is very much relevant even today. So these are the great features of Harappan architecture which have the significance even today. So this was the first question. So in the first question, intro part, and then the features, 7 or 6, 8 features you can write, and then you can come with some limitation, 1 2 limitations, as well as the significance of and the relevance of, you can say, Harappan architecture. Now, when we talk about the second question they have asked, this is very interesting question. Generally, this is not supposed to be asked, you can say, in general studies, because this question is very much to be studied in a history optional part. And you see that this art and architecture, you see, syllabus is unlimited, so they can take questions from anywhere, from ancient part and medieval part or modern part. So in the name of art and architecture. So this kind of approach UPSC has used this time, and they have taken a question which is about the Akbar's religious policy. So the question demands the kind of policies which were used by Akbar at that point of time, so that he could make the, you can say, religious syncretism. And that's why we find that because Akbar, when came to power, he was to consolidate the empire. He extended the empire along with the, you can say, extension of the empire. He had to consolidate the empire. So we find that this was a kind of situation which was also faced by Ashoka when he came to rule. And that's why many historians have tried to make a comparison between the policy of Ashoka and Akbar, and they say that like you can say Ashoka, Akbar also came with a policy which was basically trying to establish an ethical order or in the society, and so that the different diversity, ethical diversity, religious diversity now could be, you can say, sorted out. So when we talk about this policy, we find that when we talk about this policy, we find that Akbar's religious policy, through which Akbar tried to basically mingle the various religions of India, and the gist of Indian religious structure. So we find that Akbar's religious policy was based on the concept of Sulah-e-Kul. Sulah-e-Kul. So this was the basis of Akbar's religious policy, and to implement this you can say, concept of Sulh-e-Kil, we find that he took so many, you can say, measures. So that is the Rajput policy could be one, Rajput's policy. And then he established Ibadat Khana. And then you can say he came with the Mahjarnama declaration. And then he came with the abolition. So he came with the abolition of jizya tax. He abolished, you can say, pilgrim tax. And he also, you can say, gave up the religious conversion of war prisoners. So through these various policies, we find that Akbar tried to implement his religious policy, and he tries to strengthen the unity among his, you can say, subjects. So we find that when we talk about the Rajput policy, so one component of Rajput policy of Akbar was, you can say, the marital alliance between the Mughals and Rajputs, through which he tried to get the loyalty of Rajputs, because he knew that Rajput were the most important powers of the time. So if like he would be making a good relation with Rajputs, definitely there will be consolidation of, you can say, Mughal empire in India, and that's why he tried to align with Rajputs through various means. But the marital alliance was not the only component to have good relation with Rajputs. And then he established Ibadat Khana. Through the Ibadat Khana, basically he was trying to get the gist of, you can say, all the religions, Jainism, Hinduism, and Islam, even the Christianity. So that because Akbar was having the belief that all religions are having the similar internal aspects. So he tried to basically get the gist, so that it would be helping him, or it would be bringing, you can say, a kind of a unified ethical code, so that this would be abide by his subjects. And along with that, we find that he came with Mahjarnama, and on the basis of Mahjarnama, actually Akbar claimed that if ulemas would be doing some interpretation of Islamic laws, Shariat, so he will have a right to choose the most suitable one, so that it would be helping for the betterment of the state. So Mahjarnama declaration was also important component, and along with this we find that the abolition of jizya, though jizya is a very, you can say, disputed tax as far as its nature is concerned. Some say that it was a religious tax, some say that it was a, you can say, secular tax on the behalf of the military service provided by the state to the subjects. But whether it's a secular tax or it is a religious tax, even if we don't get involved in that dispute, we find that it was definitely a tax which was making a, you can say, difference between Hindu subjects, or you can say the Muslim subject and non-Muslim subject. And that's why Akbar abolished the jizya tax. He also abolished the pilgrim tax, and he also basically prohibited, you can say, religious conversion of war prisoners, because war prisoners are generally supposed to be the slaves, and slaves were a kind of property at, you can say, at that point of time, according to Islamic laws. And that's why he said that no, there should not be religious conversion of slaves also. So this was also, you can say, a great step to do the religious, you can say, syncretism. So all these steps were taken by Akbar, so that Akbar's rules could be consolidated, the Mughal empire could be consolidated here. So these things, you can say, all these dimensions are to be discussed in the question. So Akbar's policy of syncretism is Sulh-Kul. Sulh-Kul means universal peace or universal brotherhood. And to use this doctrine of Sulh-Kul, Akbar took so many measures like abolition of discriminatory taxes like jizya tax, pilgrim tax, and then you can say Ibadat Khana was, you can say, established, and then Din-e-Ilahi, you can say, it was another important ethical order, which was tried by Akbar to establish, so that the people would be surrendering their ego, their property, their faith, and their potential would be coming, and their potential could be used for the betterment of the state, in the interest of the state, because Akbar's you can say implies were coming from diverse background. They are Uzbek, they are Kyrgyz people, they are Shias, they are Sunnis, they are various you can say segments of Hindus also. That's why through the Dine Ilahi, or which is also known as Tawhid Ilahi, he also tried to bring unity, especially among his employees, means his military personnel and his civil, you can say, bureaucrats. And then we have discussed already matrimonial alliance was there. And then you can say there is a cultural mingling also Akbar tried. So the translation of various books from Sanskrit to Persian language, and along with this architectural mingling also took place. So the Mughals architecture of Akbar time, and after that we find that having the mingling of, you can say, various elements of a different style of architecture. So this is also another important step taken by Akbar. And so, and then finally, state policy. It means that Akbar never tried to actually impose the Shariat, or he did not try to make the state the Islamic state. Though his personal religion was Islam, but he knew that in a country like India, you can say Islam is not going to be established as the religion of a state. So that's why always there is a difference between religion of a state and religion of the ruler in India, and this was followed by Akbar. So these things, these dimensions are to be written in this question. Now, when we talk about the third question, which is also part of art and culture, we find that this question, though it is a bit, you can say, type of question which was not that much expected, but in all our classes, we do, you can say, assert these things that this is the time of revivalism. And so especially the area which is gray area, or which is unsung areas, definitely these areas would be always focused by UPSC. So they can ask some question related to this area. So though this question is from art and you can say culture, but this is also to be understood here that the stories or the contribution of unsung heroes are to be also, you can say, focused in the coming years also. And that's why you can say that the question is not beyond the expectation. So here also you have to mention about the various features of the sculptures of Chandelas. Chandelas contributed very significantly, especially in the field of architecture, in the field of sculpture. And Khajuraho is very famous place for their contribution. And so we find that they made a lot of contribution between 9th to 13th century when they were ruling in India. And so the features is like there is a resilient vigor here, because we find that we find that we find that they would be always basically they would be always find that they would be always bringing so many dimensions, which is you can say religious dimensions, which could be also like non-religious dimensions. So they have used the worldly affairs, means the life of common people and their affairs, as well as the religious affairs in their sculpture making. So we find that they have used the dynamism in their sculptures. So their sculptures include the making of gods, different goddesses, apsaras, and mithuna means erotic couples. And then you can say warriors, dancers, and musicians. So they have tried to make their sculpture, make their architecture very encompassing and inclusionary. Along with this, we find that their sculptures are not, you can say, static, but they are depicted in fluid, rhythmic, and different postures were used. So in a rhythmic manner, they have made their sculpture. So there is a you can say Tribhanga style So that symbolizes the energy and resilience. So we find that these are the important features of Chandela's architecture. Along with this, we find that they have made both, we have already mentioned that the religious and you can say the secular kinds of affairs of life. So you can say animals, ordinary human, artisans, no? And then the different lives or different, you can say, the you can say different kind of the daily life, day-to-day life things are, you can say, depicted in their you can say sculpture. And along with that, they have tried to make a integration of spiritual and secular themes. So they were having the interest in transcendental things also, and erotic. They have used the erotic, you can say, sceneries also, because erotic. You can say things are also related to a kind of, you can say, the potential or of the creation of the universe. So a spiritual, you can say, energy, and you can say the worldly affairs related things are depicted by Chandelas in their sculpture. So these are the two important aspects, because in their sculpture the resilient vigors is there, and they have made their sculpture multi-dimensional, so the breadth of life is also there. So we find that these two unique features of, you can say, their sculpture make a difference between the other sculptures of the time and the, you can say, Chandela contributions in the field of sculpture. So this is another important, you can say, segment question related to UPSC this year. And then we find that another question is Mahatma Jyotirao Phule's writings and efforts of social reforms touched the issue of almost subaltern cases. Now, when we talk about the contribution of, you can say, Mahatma Phule, we find that Mahatma Phule was the pioneer of basically depressed class movement in India, and this was the time of socio-religious reform movement, and we know that the socio-religious reform movement were basically a kind of a steer against the prevailing, you can say, westernization, increasing westernization, and then the evils of Indian socio-religious you can say section of the time. And that's why many people like Raja Ram Mohan Rai, then Arya Samaj came, and among them like Jyotiba Phule was also a great contributor. So we find that the socio-religious reform movement of the time, in one sense it was a region-centric or religion-centric, or you can say community-centric. So Jyotiba Phule movement, as it is known as depressed class movement, he was the pioneer of this. But along with this, he tries to make his movement very, you can say, encompassing, because he not only focused on a depressed class, but he would be also trying to, you can say, focus about the problems of lower classes along with women. So that's why in his you can say writing, or in his reforms, basically almost all subaltern classes were basically focused. So not only the depressed class, not only the untouchables, but along with them the lower caste problems, the women's problems were, you can say, sorted out. He tried to basically voice against the, you can say, type of suppression against all these groups, and he also tried to make some reforms in their lives. He tried to contribute something, so that these different lives of different classes would be improved. So we find that he basically he voiced against the dominance of, you can say, Brahmin. So he basically argued for the abolition of caste and untouchability. He wrote, you can say, Gulamgiri, that is very, very important. And he talked about the rights and dignity of Sudraj and untouchables. He exposed the social injustice. And then he tried to do the promotion of education. And if the promotion of education would be there, certainly the women section would be also benefited. So we find that he founded the first girls' school in Pune in 1848. And along with Jyotiba Phule, we find that his wife Savitri Bai Phule also played important role in this regard. So he did the promotion of education also. Then for women empowerment, we find that he opposed the child marriage and then the female infanticide. And then he also instituted, you can say, widow homes and advocated for women's education and emancipation. So we find that depressed class and the women and you can say lower classes all basically got their voice in the voice of Jyotiba Phule. And so you can say he also basically included the grievances of the peasants in his reforms program. So he tried to basically make his reforms program very, you can say, encompassing. So even later on we find that Dr. Ambedkar and then Periyar, they also came and they were inspired by the contribution of Jyotiba Phule. But as far as the Phule's contribution is concerned, we find that the Phule's contributions are more encompassing. Means that it was not only the you can say confined to the one class, or you can say but also he tried to included the different classes like peasants, women, and people coming from lower classes. And that's why he contributed very significantly in the history of India. Now, when we talk about the next question, UPSC has asked this year is the India's consolidation process during early phase of independence in terms of polity, economic, education, and international relation. So there is a very famous statement that in 1947 India got political freedom, but socio-economic freedom were yet to be obtained. So this question is on that line only, because you have to, in introduction, you can come with the challenges faced by the newly made Indian government, and then the contribution of the governments in the post-independence age. And so you can write some important contribution in the field of, you can say, education, in the field of polity, in the field of economy. So in political field, we find that Constitution of India was framed, implemented, and then the princely estates were, you can say, unified together, and then first general election took place. So these are to be mentioned in field of polity. In economy, we find that mixed, you can say, economy model was adopted in India, and you see 5 years plan came out, and then first 5-year plan, then second 5-year plan, and so. But what the emphasis of these 5 years plans that would be mentioned there. Other, you can say, important economic steps taken by the government that could be mentioned here. And in education, you see so many, you can say, newly built, you can say, educational institution, especially IIT Kharagpur, AIMS Delhi, that could be mentioned here. And then international relation, you see, Nehru was the basically champion of internationalism, and so you see he contributed very significantly in non-aligned movement. So all these different dimensions are to be incorporated in the answer, because after 1947 the government tried you can say its best to contribute in all the field where there was a need. And so the government tried, and then some limitations would be always there, but along with this you can mention some suggestions that what yet to be done even today. So these things are to be mentioned in this question. So again, this type of question in previous years also they have asked. And then when we talk about you can say this question, the last question, this question is from world history. The French Revolution has enduring relevance to the contemporary world. So what were contributed by French Revolution at that point of time, and how the legacy of, you can say, French Revolution is still, you can say, contributing, inspiring the world. So that has to be mentioned, you can say, in this question. So we find that generally many people suggest that world history could be avoided, but this would not be a good thing on the part of students, because a single mark, you can say, has its significance in UPSC examination. And so this question now related to world history of 15 marks. So always you see, many students do that. They try to neglect the world history. But for me, world history is the most important part of history, because if you are not good at world history, you see that modern history of yours could not be good, because there is a great, you can say, connection between world history and modern history. And if you were good at world history, your international relation would be always good. And so that's why you should not try to avoid the things related to world history. So now this question is, you can say, about the significance, relevance of French Revolution. And you know that the three watchwords of French Revolution taken from the writings of Rousseau, liberty, equality, and fraternity. So they are very much universal values. They are very much encompassing values. So always they would be having the relevance throughout the world. So when we talk about the democracy and republic, their seeds could be, you can say, found in this French Revolution, along with this equality. So even the seeds of socialism could be found here. Fraternity was important part. So we find that there's different, you can say, equality and social justice, and cultural and intellectual impact, and the economic influence, because there are so many economic changes also happened. You can say the property of a church was nationalized, and then it would be, you can say, distributed. The economic impact, the political and administrative impact, the religious impact, the, you can say, political impact, all was witnessed by the world after the 1789 French Revolution. So domestic, you can say, impact means the you can say internal impact and external impact. So always revolutions, external impact will have the relevance. And the French Revolution, which was very much encompassing, so always there are important values which were demanded by, which were incorporated by French Revolution now in France. So always they would be of great significance and relevance. So we find that if you, you can say, describe about the three values, you can say liberty, fraternity, and equality. So this question would be easily answered, because these values basically became the aspirations of the entire Europe, and later on the, you can say, entire world. Even the you can say the sense of nationalism, which was strengthened by French Revolution, that played important role in the entire, you can say, Europe. So we find that unification of Italy and Germany was witnessed, and along with that we also find that even in the Balkan Peninsula, the feelings of nationalism made its excess. So that's why we find that in all field, cultural field, intellectual field, economic field, you can say, in the field of, you can say, social equality, and then democracy, republics, all these values are basically, you can say, brought by French Revolution. And so the world has to achieve all these values, you can say, in the coming, you can say, days or coming centuries. And that's why there will be always the relevance of French Revolution. So you see 6 questions this time they have asked, about 60 marks questions. So 1 or 2 more questions were expected, but they didn't ask, because in prelims, the people from history background, or you can say the people who are having history under their control, they have done very well in prelims. So they have tried to reduce the some number of questions in history in GS this year. So see, prima facie, all these questions look very simple questions, very easy, but it is not very easy to write the answer, because you see that when the questions prima facie seem to be easy, the answer would be a bit more tough to write, because the simple questions, you can say, need a very well structured answer. So if you are not brilliant at making the structure, if your rough work is not very brilliant, so it is not very much encompassing, then it would be very difficult to write the, you can say, good answers, and then it will be also very difficult to get good marks. And you know that even a single marks, you can say, matters in UPSC examination. So the, you can say, structure making, the rough work is very, very important. And you know that in general studies, you have to write 20 questions. So at that point of time, it is very difficult to do the rough work. And that's why I continuously, you can say, tell my students that you have to be brilliant in structure making, and that structure making is possible only you go through the government books, original books. You develop the, you can say, the sense of interconnectedness, and so your answer would be encompassing and inclusionary. So thank you today. I hope you will have enjoyed this discussion.